Last year, the biggest surprise in the NBA by far was the Sacramento Kings, as they won nearly 50 games and snagged the 3rd seed. And the way the Kings played basketball this year and last year, high-paced, high-intensity, great passing and spacing, is a thing of beauty to watch. And of course, the cherry on top is the iconic Light the Beam celebration. It's definitely been pretty enjoyable to see Kings basketball make a full 180 these last 2 seasons. And for someone like De'Aaron Fox to finally get adequate help make the playoffs and make his first All-Star game. Now, despite a great 2023 campaign, I didn't think a lot of fans, NBA analysts, were taking Sacramento that seriously coming into 2024. As according to these so-called experts, Sacramento at most should win 44 games and be the 8th or 9th seed in the Western Conference. For me personally, that's kind of downplaying Sacramento and really undervaluing them. Now, of course, the Western Conference is highly competitive. That's why De'Aaron Fox, getting off the start he has, was definitely vital to the Kings and their overall success. As so far, Fox is averaging 32.2 points, the most in the NBA, 6 assists, 5 boards, on 51, 38, and 75 splits. The Kings right now, once again, are a top 5 seed in the West and playing great basketball. And that overall record is a tad bit deceiving, as so far De'Aaron has missed nearly half the team's games, where the record was 2-3 without him. When Fox has actually been healthy and playing, the Kings as an overall unit look like legit contenders. And my overall inspiration for this video, giving De'Aaron so much props, actually comes via this tweet on Twitter. Now, definitely a very, very tough question, but looking at the replies, a lot of fans said De'Aaron Fox should be cut. Of course, a very tough question to answer, as all 4 of those guys are all-star players with Hall of Fame potential. But the one guy I am not cutting is De'Aaron Fox. Maybe controversial, but De'Aaron for sure is the one guy I'm not cutting. As looking at his overall game, his track record, his offensive skill set is super versatile, and late in games, he's a proven killer in the big-time moments. As last year for 4th quarter scoring, he ranked 2nd, only behind Kyrie Irving at 7.8 points per game. And this year, came back just as effective late in games, averaging 9.8 points, which is 1st in the NBA through the first month. And some of his big-time games rising to the occasion. Versus the Lakers, he had 13 points in the 4th quarter on a bum ankle. Versus the Warriors and Steph Curry head-to-head, had 22 in the 4th, and versus the Spurs, had 14 points and took over in the final 5 minutes. And if you've watched Kings basketball these last 2 years, even before that, you know De'Aaron always has been lightning quick, a great first step, and extremely shifty. But now at 25, watching his game, his overall evolution, he's not going 100 miles per hour 24/7 like he used to. As in a lot of these games, he's picking his spots, slowing down, and settling for great shots in the mid-range or just outside the paint. Simply put, there's not many guards or players in general who I trust late in games more than De'Aaron Fox. As last year, time and time again, this guy in the clutch came through numerous times for the Kings. Now, speaking of the Kings' overall team, since De'Aaron's come back to the lineup, their overall offense has once again taken a massive leap with him on the court compared to without. As when De'Aaron was hurt, this same Kings team got 20-piece twice by the Houston Rockets. But now looking at their overall ranks since De'Aaron's come back, they rank 2nd in points per game at 128.7, only behind the Bucks. 1st in field goal percentage, 2nd in made threes, and 1st in assists at over 31. De'Aaron gets a lot of credit for that, but Sabonis also is a massive piece to the Kings' overall puzzle. And when these two guys are healthy on the court at the same time, in terms of 2-man offensive tandems, it's hard to name 5 duos better than this duo offensively. And the overall spacing of the Kings, with guys like Kevin, Malik, Keegan Murray, even Harrison Barnes, it makes the Kings' offense extremely deadly. And in terms of contenders in the Western Conference, that makes Sacramento a legit team in 2024. And of course, looking ahead to the playoffs, which are a long ways out, there's two things that are always vitally important come postseason time. Number one, which players and which teams can get a bucket late, and number two, do you have that superstar duo who can dominate late with the two-man game? Now De'Aaron checks both those boxes. As looking at him this year, as a pick-and-roll ball handler, he's in the top 2% of NBA players in that aspect, averaging 10.7 points per game, the fourth highest in the NBA, on 65.8% shooting and 72% effective field goal percentage. Those shooting splits right there are higher than any qualifier in the top 100, ahead of Luka Doncic, Dame, Halliburton, and any other player who's elite in the pick and roll. And of course, Sabonis in his own right is also elite as the roll man, ranking 7th in scoring at 4.4 points per game in the pick and roll. And if you look around the entire NBA right now, in terms of one-on-one talent, ISO talent, the league right now is as deep as ever. And when you think about the best ISO players, you probably think Kevin Durant, Luka, Tatum, guys in that vein. Bigger forwards who can get easy buckets. And while all those guys are great ISO players, this year De'Aaron Fox has been just as good, and in my view, the best ISO guard and non-big player. As so far Fox is averaging 6.2 points per game on ISO scoring, that ranks 3rd in the NBA, only behind Tatum and Luka. And in terms of shooting splits, ranks in the top 4% among all qualifiers. And if you look at the top 10 ISO scores, only 2 guards crack that list. One of course being De'Aaron and the other SGA. Now, Shai, unlike De'Aaron, is shooting a pitiful 36% on ISO plays, compared to Fox, who's above 50%. And if you compare Fox's overall game to someone like Halliburton, who's more of a distributor, a passer, a pass-first player, look, he's a great player, but I prefer a guy like Fox who's score first, downhill, and looking to score his own basket, but can also dish the rock. I just think come playoff time, having a score-first point guard in today's league who can also impact the game passing-wise is a little bit more valuable. As looking at De'Aaron's overall value, with him on the court, the Kings have a 122.3 offensive rating, compared to without De'Aaron, where it drops by 14 points. And if you compare De'Aaron's overall game to someone like Anthony Edwards, it is pretty close in terms of impact and overall value. But I think Fox at this point in his career, being almost 26 years old, his offensive game is more polished and more consistent. And while Ant has great potential, at this point he's more chaotic and brute force. And if you want to talk overall comparisons, look at that 2017 draft class where De'Aaron was picked 5th overall. In hindsight, Fox being the 5th pick, the 4th guard taken, it is pretty wild. As Fultz is now hurt, Lonzo also hurt, and Josh Jackson, I'm pretty sure, out of the NBA. For De'Aaron Fox to have more All-Star appearances than all those guys combined, it's pretty astonishing. And for the Kings' overall organization, really since 2020, they've been taking incremental steps to be legit contenders. And I think for a lot of us NBA fans, for a team like the Kings who've been garbage since the Chris Webber days, it takes a while for us to believe in a team like the Kings. As in NFL terms, like the Browns or Lions, you love to root for them, but you always know in the back of your head, they're going to blow it and lose it in typical Kings fashion. That's the kind of aura, the mystique, the Kings still have to shake. As last year, yes, making the playoffs was fantastic. But this year, take that next step, actually win a series, and maybe, just maybe, sneak in the Western Conference Finals. And of course, De'Aaron Fox, barring injury, should be a 2-time All-Star back-to-back, and very possibly to win the Jerry West Clutch Award yet again. So that right there is the end of the video. As always, thank you guys for watching, hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.